Welcome, everyone. Good morning. First, I'd like to say I'm really saddened by the passing of my congressional representative, Cummings. So his long commitment to public service and workforce and making this democracy better is not to be understated. And that is not the way that I had planned to open or to proceed forward, but I think that it will tie back in with our discussion a little bit later, so hopefully you'll see that connection. So from the really exciting things that are happening with technology, not only in government, but in the public sector as well. So we're all enjoying those fruits. We get to telecommute. We get to get texts and emails even when I am at another location that I still have to work. I can keep up with some of my friends from grade school and high school, which is a feat within itself, not just because that's been a long time since high school, but also because from a military family, I went to 14 schools in my K-12 experience. So keeping up with them has been challenging, and there's great opportunities with that technology. But we all understand, especially in this room, some of the difficulties and the vulnerabilities, everything from the election, securing elections, the data assets, privacy issues, the bots that are proliferating, the fake news, your intellectual property. All of those are really some challenges. And I hope that I don't disappoint everyone in the room by saying I don't have the answer to all of that. What I will speak to is what I have enjoyed and are really passionate about, and that is in the workforce development, which I think is really one large piece of the puzzle in helping secure and make a more secure nation, is having a skilled and knowledgeable cybersecurity workforce. So I'm going to talk a little bit about I was asked to talk about some of the policies and the trends that we're seeing in that particular piece. So we have to kind of start somewhere, and I want to just kind of start with within our NICE project team, our National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. We helped in putting forth the report to the President, Building the Foundation for a More Secure American Future. That was part of from the executive order on supporting the growth and sustainment of the nation's cybersecurity workforce. And that really was recognizing the fundamental role played in cybersecurity workforce development being really key in having all the other pieces sort of fall within. There are recommendations, and you can read through some of the findings. We pulled together public and private input, did an environmental scan, and came up with some findings, and happy to share the link for you to go and look at that. But some of the key recommendations that came out for that was, one, a call to action, and I know that you're going to see that in a couple of other actions that are taking place too, in really drawing attention to mobilize and the importance of the workforce. The other one is to support high-quality, effective cybersecurity education and training and workforce development programs. And the support also is in budgetary areas, whether it be a partnership or other foundations or government funding. A focus on recruiting, development, and retention of workers, particularly those in the government setting. It's really difficult when industry has really wonderful things. I know some of the youth that we work with, it's not so much the pay, but they all want to work for Google and have free food and beanbag chairs in their office. So I'm not saying that the government should go down that route, but we have to think of strategies to be able to not only recruit, but then develop those workers and to be able to retain them. And then looking at sectors or other opportunities in workforce development. So you've seen an uptick in apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships, in work-based learning, in co-ops, in virtual training and the competitions, and along with decreasing student debt. All of those are some of the items that we're seeing coming out. And then a really big, important key piece is aligning workforce, what employers say that they want from employees in terms of the skills and the knowledge. And that's a key point. And so I'll just share a little story. Probably about a year ago, I was at a conference and they were talking about the NICE workforce framework. I'll talk a little later, mention that. But they said, there was a conversation and dialogue in the conference, in a plenary session about, the NICE framework is for the workforce and employees. That has nothing to do with education. Now just think for a minute what that means. Does that mean our education system is not preparing our workforce and that we want those two things separate? I think that's one of the big issues that we are tackling right now, is to try to bring those two back together, is understanding that education, training, workforce development are all for hopefully the end goal, and that is to get folks employed and to have knowledgeable and skilled citizens. So with that, with the connection there, one, sort of everybody jumping on board, making sure that we're all aligned to the NICE workforce framework and the lexicon, so we're all stating the same language. There's a focus on model career paths and pathways, and in cybersecurity, the opportunities and letting people know about those. Really a focus on interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach to cybersecurity, not just what some folks think that cybersecurity is all just technical and computer science or somebody sitting on a couch with a hoodie hacking. It's more than that, and we need to make the general public aware of those opportunities. There's also, one of the recommendations was a focus on the regional alliances, and that's because we do recognize that cybersecurity is very regional in depth as well. So, if you're in New York area, it's probably more on the financial sector. If you're in the DC area here, it's on the policy and the defense. So we understand those regional have specifics. And then there was a recommendation for a clearinghouse of resources and repositories, and they're still working on that, as well as measuring the impact and the efficiency of these. So with that, a number of activities have come about, and I can't go over all of them, but I'll just highlight some of them that I thought would be of interest to this group. And I apologize in advance if one of these is your passion and you know more about it than me. I apologize for maybe not going more in depth, but given the time, I'll try to just highlight the top level. So one was establishing the National Council for the American Worker, and they've been doing some fantastic work. One of the working group recommendations was to develop a campaign to promote the multiple pathways. I know that sounds like, well, that's not great, that's not really gonna get into it. That is one of the really critical issues that we're finding in workforce, is that the general public has a mindset that the only folks that can work in this area are technical with a 4-year degree. And so changing that mindset to allow the opportunities for parents, for students, for graduate and undergraduate students to understand and recognize that there are other pathways possible, apprenticeships, community colleges, certifications, military, all sorts of opportunities. So changing kind of that mindset and a campaign for that. You'll see that Several efforts are working on that campaign. Excuse me. But they're not doing it disjointed. We're coming at it at different ways, but all going after the main focus to promote multiple pathways. Another is, and with that also, sub-degrees and micro-credentialing. So you're seeing kind of an uptick on that. Technology-driven, online learning, competitions, workforce, FedVT, all sorts of activities that are going into that. Another group within that working group recommendation is to increase the data transparency. And so there is a group that is working on the interoperable learning records, the ILRs, and that's a really important piece that I think will be critical, is being able to say, okay, we had, this person started out here, where did they end up? What were their pathways? How can they show, besides just a diploma, how can they show their skill sets, their competencies? So that's an important key point. And then one that I'm really excited about, and that is, it's under kind of the umbrella of recruitment and training practices, but it's pulling together the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Education. So the Department of Labor has the Standards Occupational Classifications, the SOC codes. And then in the Department of Education, they have the SIP codes, which are the Classification of Instructional Programs. Those two do not connect. We constantly get asked, well, how many students do you have that are graduating from centers of academic excellence in cybersecurity that are going into XYZ, systems admin, or you decide which of the SOC codes that its classification is going into. So pulling those two together will be huge, because right now those databases don't talk, and the Department of Labor, their SOC classifications, their occupation, that's what everybody pulls into, the career, the job portals, the career exploration portals that are used for both the collegiate and the middle and high school level. All of them are based on those SOC codes, but yet they're not talking to the education, so there's a disconnect. So I'm really excited about what might come out of that. And then also under this umbrella, you might have heard, is the opportunity zone. So being able to have the tax cuts and the Job Act of 2017 for those opportunity zones, which the governors selected census tracts, around over 8,000 of these low-income census tract locations, to really start to kind of boost up, to understand diversity is really key in the cybersecurity and workforce, STEM workforce overall. What's interesting is within those census tract data is 350 of the 2- and 4-year college and universities, which is basically includes half of our historically Black colleges and universities, are tagged in those opportunity zones. So that is, I think, an opportunity for us, not only for workforce development overall in the STEM, but also cybersecurity. Another piece in this particular activity is they came up with a definition of skill-based training. So when you think about skills-based, or you think about training, there are various definitions, and so this group came up with a formal definitions for the skill-based training: activities, programs, or events offered for employees that provide employees with the necessary knowledge, technical skills, and professional skills to perform and stay up to date in their current job. And then it walks through the specific ways that they categorize. So there's the initial skills training, like job shadowing and job rotation. There's the job maintenance, which is new products and services that you have to come up to speed with. There's the upskilling training, which they defined as being able to take someone and upskill them or transition them into a a new role or a new area, which is really critical for cybersecurity. And then employee development, which is mentoring and coaching and leadership skills and activities that go on. It doesn't include things like compliance training and onboard training and informal learning. But I think just having that definition, just like having with the government coming up with a federal definition of pathways, was really critical for the metrics of being able to have something that we could then all measure the same. We were measuring the same thing. A second one here, a second activity that it has been maybe more current activity made 2019 was American cybersecurity workforce. And so the priority consideration was placed on imperatives, on call to action, which for cybersecurity. And one of the things that's exciting about that, a small piece of it, is we know that it's October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so everybody is celebrating, I know. But did you know that, let me see a show of hands of how many of you knew that November 11th through the 16th is National Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week? 1, 2, okay, well, now you know. And so it is a great opportunity that if you are in this particular field, whether it be technical or non-technical, it's a way of celebrating all of the career opportunities and pathways in cybersecurity and being able to share and let folks know of why you love that particular job and what opportunities. It also a focus on aligning education and training employees. So whereas the other activity was more on the workforce, this drills down even further on the cybersecurity skill sets and the inclusion of the lifelong careers. So seeing that pathway, not just job hopping, but actual seeing how you can move up and transition in your career in cybersecurity. So those were some of the key aspects in that component. Another activity that I'll just mention here, and it might not be, well, it should be of interest to all of you, is the Federal STEM Strategic Plan. And so the STEM Strategic Plan, the goals is for America to become STEM educated. There are 3 overall big bucket goals, if you will. Strong foundation in STEM overall, and so that's going to include a variety of different things. An increase in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and preparing the STEM for workforce for the future. So that's really where the cybersecurity and all of the elements that come in with that, the AI, the IoT, all of that along the way. Within that, there are different pathways. I actually serve as one of the co-chairs for computational literacy and promoting computational literacy in our schools, not only from K-12 up through our higher ed and actually into the workforce. So what's interesting is that computational literacy, the federal government does not have a definition for that. So one of the first things we have to figure out is they said, we need to build it, but we don't have a definition for it yet. So that's one of our big tasks that we're taking on. Within, I missed one here, so let me go back. Maybe I didn't. Oh. The National Cyber Strategy, which is, of course, an important piece. And Pillar 2 of that strategy describes promoting American prosperity and places priority on developing superior cybersecurity workforce. So the Pillar 2, again, is in the workforce, which we're, workforce development, which we're really key in focusing in on. You also see things like the Federal Cyber Reskilling Academy. You see expanding reskilling and educational opportunities like the NICE framework, a focus on that, on adding the competencies to that, talk of updating the NICE workforce framework, trying to figure out ways, again, to recruit, retain government as well as, mainly from our government, so because our private sector is sort of poaching all of our good candidates. So the focus is on enhancing a federal cybersecurity workforce and highlighting and rewarding talent. And within that also came out just recently, a couple weeks ago, the President's Cybersecurity Educator Award. So the Federal Registry went out for that, and that is having awards for high school and elementary teachers. And then in addition, you probably are aware of other things such as, the being able to hire the different and the different pay scales and things along those lines. So with that, I will close in saying that while I know the focus today, you're going to continue on and talk more about some of the threats and some of the strategies that are going in with that, we feel one of the key components to helping eliminate those vulnerabilities is the development of our workforce, our cybersecurity workforce, to really have a knowledgeable and skilled workforce. And any help and suggestions and opportunities to engage, we would love to hear from you. So thanks.